Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Fab Four podcast, brought to you by Hatcher Auto Sales out on the new Lebanon Road. Go by and see Danny and Daniel Hatcher for your rebuilt automotive needs. Again, that's Hatcher Auto Sales. We'd like to thank them for sponsoring the Fab Four podcast. Got a great guest on today, a legend in Taylor County, one of the best athletes to come through Taylor County in a long time. We've had some great ones recently, but got to go back. Now, this is before we had the internet and before we had the three-point line. And so a lot of those folks, young folks, don't remember those things. So, but first, before we introduce our guest, let me go ahead and get started with our cast. First, we've got a 2018 graduate from Taylor County High School, Big Alec Williams. We've got Ben Bertram, a 2019 graduate. Get us to the old folks, 1985 graduate of Campbellsville High School, and a Big Scott Franklin. We call him Scott Fat Franklin. He is the world's greatest football prognosticator, and we'll be coming back to you this year with his prognostications, hopefully in the fall, if we ever get to have high school football in the state of Kentucky. And I'm Paul McQuarrie, a 1985 graduate from Adair County High School. And our guest tonight is a 1980. What year did you graduate?
85. Seems like a good year.
All right. Graduate of Taylor County High School, Mr. Doug Wingler. Doug, thank you for visiting with us all the way from sunny California, even though you say it's been raining there.
Yeah, it's raining and hot, but hey, I really appreciate being on. I am a fan, actually. I think I've just viewed parts or almost your entire cast with different people, but yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on and kind of take maybe a trip down old good times back in Campbellsville and at Taylor County High School. So I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started with you, Doug. And like I say, we'll just ask you some random questions, and you just kind of enlighten us on your life and where your life's taking us, and all your coaching adventures and all that kind of good stuff. We'll get started with Alec. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Doug, talk about, of course, you played high school ball at Taylor County. Tell the fans that don't know who you are, what sports you played at Taylor County, where you went to college, and then what you've done since college dealing with sports.
Awesome. Well, as Paul said, I graduated in 1985, but I played 3 sports at Taylor County, 4 years of football, 4 years of basketball, and then 3 years of baseball. And right after I graduated Taylor County, I went to Campbellsville. It was Campbellsville College then. I think probably not even a fourth of what the enrollment is now, but I had 2 great coaches there, Coach Cunningham and Coach Davis. Coach Davis coached baseball there, and my first year out of college, or out of high school, I went to Campbellsville College, played baseball and basketball there. It was quite interesting, but a great time. And then right as we ended my freshman year, one of my best friends in the world, Kevin Means, was down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, playing baseball for a junior college called Shelton State. So we go back to our Mets days, Scott. We always wanted to be a big league baseball player, so kind of made a really rough decision to walk away from Campbellsville. I really liked it there. The opportunity to play 2 sports was, in college it's just an awesome opportunity. But kind of tried to see the bigger picture. Went down to Shelton State. It was a lot of good, a lot of bad. But I met my wife, who I got to put a plug in. Tomorrow be our 30th year anniversary. Met her while I was in Tuscaloosa. So that's one of the great things that came out of it. After I finished with Shelton State, really didn't have a place to go, and we played summer ball at Derby City in Louisville. Kevin and I drove up there probably two, three nights a week and played. And I was very fortunate enough to have the baseball coach from the University of Louisville, John Mason. He came, watched the game, and next thing I know, I was a Louisville Cardinal, and played 2 years there. Just had an incredible incredible time there, and just a great experience to be able to play at that level and do something that you love to do. And then after I graduated there, kind of got into life, owned a business in Louisville, Kentucky for about 10 years. 1996, we almost like the Beverly Hillbillies, we loaded up and moved out to California, and been here about 24 years now. I think we moved out in 96. My math never was that good, so Scott, if you need to help me out with that, that's good too. So
it won't be me. It'll be Ben Bertram. He's a sharp guy on this podcast.
I'll pass it on to Alec.
Anyway, out in Northern California, a couple different sales jobs, had a business or two out here, and then I had two beautiful daughters, and they got into fast pitch softball, and was able to coach rec leagues, and then got involved with the high school program. With honestly probably one of the best coaches I've ever been around. His name is Gary Pickle. He out in California, you only get 24 games in a season, and he'd won 400 high school varsity games, a couple section titles, which would be the equivalent to like a state tournament in Kentucky, and was his assistant coach for 7 years. Helped coach my oldest daughter, Emily, and then Gary, I guess, retired after 50-some years of coaching, and I had the high school program for 2 years. I got to finish up my youngest daughter, Rachel. Both had really great careers as pitchers on the high school level. And then after my second year at the varsity level, the opportunity opened up for a junior college here in Ukiah, California, called Mendocino College. And took it over. It was basically a total rebuild. No team the year before, no returning players. And so we were very fortunate, had a really good group of kids come on. Really worked hard, got through the first year. We had a great, still had a really young team. We were doing really good right before COVID hit. And just kind of looking forward to, we actually are going to get to do an abbreviated fall, and we start on next Monday. So really looking forward to getting back out on the field with the girls. And that was pretty quick, but that's basically my whole life in about 3.5 minutes there. So I don't know if it's good enough. But, that's kind of been my sports journey there. So
Ben?
Yeah, so it's kind of becoming a trend, I guess, for a lot of high school coaches to not support the multiple sport athletes, or not support them, but at least their endeavors to play more than one sport. Did you ever experience that, and what's your take on coaches nowadays with that attitude?
Great question. I can only speak for myself, but Ben, I was I think back a lot now that I'm a coach. I was very fortunate that almost in every step of my life as an athlete, I had incredible coaches. Not only were they're incredible coaches as far as teaching you the game, teaching you how to compete, but they were just really good people. And I personally had nothing but support from whether it was Coach Lindsay, Coach Stein in football, Coach Waddle, Coach Cox in basketball, Coach Shaw in baseball. They were all very, very supportive. Second part of your question is, I think that I see kids now, especially out here in softball and out in California, they almost have you choose a sport. If you play travel softball, I mean, they start in February and they go all the way through November, and they start at 12, and they kind of they don't kind of get burned. They get burned out as they transfer through. But I think what happens is, the different sports gives you different experiences, and we actually have a couple athletes. Actually, this year I had one last year. They'll play dual sports. At the junior college, they'll play volleyball and then they'll play softball. So I think, I couldn't imagine my life if I only played one sport, because I got so many different experiences out of all three of them. I would hope that if a kid loved two sports, that they'd get the opportunity to play that two sports. From a coaching standpoint, I would hope that that a coach would see the big picture of the person as a whole as a kid. It's not. I think sometimes we get so focused on what we want with the direction we want the program to go that sometimes it's easy to lose sight of. We're dealing with 17, 18, 20-year-old kids who still trying to find their way. And if they can do that and expand experiences over multiple sports, I'd give them the stamp of approval from myself.
Got
Doug, you mentioned three of those coaches there, or three of the sports and the coaches go along with it. Go ahead and add Coach Cunningham and Coach Davis at the college. What can you tell us about playing for each one of those? You don't got to go in great in depth, but what was it like playing for? And I know all of them, of course, Billy Lindsay and Coach Waddle and Coach Cox, and then Coach Shaw in baseball. And then what about Phil's dad at Campbellsville College? And I didn't really know Coach Davis very well from back in the day, but I know who it was. What was it like playing for those guys? What did you learn from them? What did you take from them, maybe?
Well, the main thing I took from them, Scott, is the fact, that's going to be really weird to say, but they didn't really treat me as an athlete. They just treated me as a person. We just had the privilege of doing it through sports. But, I can run it down. Coach Lindsay came in my junior year, and, if you know Coach Lindsay, he's just full of energy, and he brought a new offensive kind of game plan to Taylor County, and it was exciting. It was fun. Coach Stein, Coach Stein's been with me ever since I was a seventh grader. We go way back, and I really owe a lot to him as far as his support, his mentorship over the years. And then Coach Waddle, he was kind of what's the word I'm looking for? He was obviously the head of the program. Brent did a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes, but again, someone that you always knew that if something came up or something happened, that if you needed someone to reach out to, they would, they take a bullet for you in a heartbeat. Coach Cox was a little tough. I'm not gonna lie. He kind of old school, and from Mansville, Kentucky, and the one thing they never did is I saw it before I actually started playing when Hatcher and all those guys came through. It didn't matter who you were. They treated everybody the same, and they had the same expectations for everyone, whether you started or you were the sixth man off the bench, or you were the 10th guy that helped the practice squad for the team to get better. They treated everyone. They expected that from everyone. Coach Shaw, he was really quiet. Obviously learned a lot from him. Unfortunately, we won't get into it too much, but unfortunately, I was a couple days too old to play high school, my senior year in high school baseball. So I just got 3 years with Coach Shaw. And then moving into Campbellsville College, Coach Cunningham, again, just an incredible person. Things I would learn from him would be, how to take the grind from the high school to the college. It's a little different animal. Coach Davis, he probably, as far as baseball knowledge, had about as much baseball knowledge as anyone I've known. It's kind of, I look and I say, oh, what kind of coach am I now? And I think that I could, honestly, Scott, I think I could go back and pick pieces out of each one of those coaches that impacted my life. And my only goal as a coach is to be able to, kind of add value to these kids as they go through, as I was fortunate to have those coaches do for me. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good.
So, Doug, I want to take you back to your high school days. Of course, me and yourself and Scott, we all played in the 20th district. Obviously,
what a stacked 20th district at that time.
It was the stacked 20th district. Let me tell you something. Taylor, Campbellsville, and Adair. And, of course, Marion County. But we won't – Marion County, they weren't much in that day. But anyway, I'm going to take you back to your high school days. And, back before the three-point line, that was just, I can remember in high school dreading Taylor County coming to Adair County or Adair going to Taylor County. What were some of those describe some of the games that you played in? Of course, again, these young pups don't remember the atmosphere, and talk about the atmospheres in which you played in and some of your bigger games that you remember.
I've watched high school sports out here for 24 years, and I really, not a knock to California high school sports. My daughter's attended a small high school, probably our town's probably a little bit smaller than Greensburg. But anyway, long story short is the games I remember the most is, probably top of the list has to be the fifth region final in Bardstown with Campbellsville. And I think the fire marshal had to end up shutting the door. I mean, I just saw pictures that were posted from Mr. Robards. And, you look and there was not a place to sit. There was not a place to stand. And Paul, the great thing about kind of Taylor County and Campbellsville together is it was just the tradition that we had and the expectations of the program. On the flip side, probably one of my greatest experiences was the fifth region championship against Campbellsville. Probably one of my worst experiences was against Campbellsville in the 20th district our last year. I mean, you had two teams that probably could have went deep into the region. Unfortunately, back then, you kind of drew out of a hat, and whoever you drew is who you had to play. And I can think back, and that was actually in Adair County, Paul.
Yeah, I've still got the video of it.
Yeah, and again, it's just a situation where both schools represented their programs really well. The fan base, it was just generational almost for both schools. And
that game in particular that you're on, we knew. Of course, again, I was an Adair County student, but we knew whoever won the game between Taylor and Campbellsville was pretty much going to win that district. We had to play a game that was, it was one of those David and Goliath games, but because both of you guys were loaded.
Paul, and I'd have to go back. I can't remember if we played 3 or 4 times, but I think we played. It's been a long time, but I think we played 4 times, and the margin of the score was 7 points difference. We were fortunate enough. We found a way the first 4 games to be 1 or 2 points ahead. Hats off to Campbellsville that last. Two great teams. I mean, about as evenly matched as you can, and we got some foul. It's funny, you think you start talking about this, it kind of comes back to, but we got some foul trouble early on, and Phil and Kevin got in a lot of foul. He got in foul trouble very early on in the game, and so it was that was a tough one. We went from going to the state.
I can't imagine Kevin Mings getting in foul trouble in any shape. He was such a finesse player.
Yeah, well, Kevin, he's one of the only players I know in high school that never fouled anybody. So I mean, it's kind of one of the things. But to have the highs of 83 and went to the state tournament, and then to be maybe like the first team in I don't know how many years to not even make it to the regional tournament. That I know for us seniors, it was 3 of us. It was myself, Kevin, and Phil. We took it pretty hard. I mean, that was tough. But man, I tell you, Friday night football games and basketball games. I mean, it was just something to look forward to. And the great thing about it is if you weren't playing, you were going somewhere to watch a game. It was just kind of part of the culture. I do think, and I haven't been back in a while to kind of get involved, but I know high school sports in Kentucky are way more involved than they are out here in California. But I tell you, man, I wouldn't trade some of those times for the world. And there's bits and pieces that you think. I'll give you a little tidbit. I don't know how much time to take, but I'll give you a little tidbit about the state tournament. We went to the state tournament it was tied, I think, with about 7 seconds to go, and we got the ball out underneath Campbellsville's goal, and I don't know if you remember, but at Bardstown at that time, both teams were underneath the same goal was the bench, you know. All time out, and I'll never forget that, you know, Coach Waddle kind of looked at Brent, Coach Cox, and Coach Cox reached in his coat. He pulled out about 4 or 5 little pieces of white paper. And he said, you know, I've been working on these for a while. And literally, we went to the state tournament off a little piece of white paper that Coach Cox had drawn up, you know, a week or two before that. And, you know, one of the great quotes that I learned from Gary Pickle, the high school coach out of here, and he always said, you know, people always say, hey, they're just lucky. And, you know, Gary Pickle, his line was, luck always favors a prepared mind. And, you know, when you look back, people say, well, that was just lucky. But, you know, Coach Cox had already, you know, he'd already had that play drawn up. We trusted him enough to run it. And, you know, fortunately for us, it worked out. Again, as, you know, Scott and I was talking earlier, it's like those, again, were 2 teams that, I mean, just it could have went either way. And both of those teams, if Camels would have won, they would have represented the fifth region very respectably as well. So, but, you know, you kind of get back to the rivalry things, but, you know, those 5th regional basketball tournaments when you just couldn't even get in to watch, it was just incredible. My only hope is that it's like that back there in Kentucky now, because I haven't really seen it too much out here on the West Coast. So.
Well,
Paul, to add a little insult to injury to Doug's story about Coach Cox pulling it out, you see, Coach Carr did not want Greg McQuarrie to beat Campbellsville again. The year prior to that, in the first game of the district, we were ahead by 1, and Greg McQuarrie pulled up on about an 18-footer with Theodore Denton hanging all over him, and he hit nothing but the bottom. So during that timeout, it's my understanding from Nelson Moore that Coach Carr wanted to double Greg McQuarrie and not let him get the ball. Thus, Campbellsville did not have somebody stand about midcourt to protect the run out. And it ends up Carey's the one that gets screened and runs out. Maybe Greg's at the screen. I don't know. But at any rate, Carey's running free. So great call by Coach Cox and Coach Waddle. Not so great by the Seaville coach with Coach Carr. And I think Coach Nelson Moore said, Coach, don't you want to put somebody back? And he said, we're not letting McQuarrie get us this year.
Yeah. You know, Scott, the first game of the region, Greg hit the shot with about 1 or 2 seconds to go to beat Meade County to even get us to that next round. So it's funny you say that because Greg actually hit the game-winning shot the first round against Meade County, who was really, really good.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah, they ended up winning. They beat LaRue County, who honestly is probably one of the better high school teams I had seen that we played against.
Very good team, absolutely.
And Meade County beat them in the finals the next year and went on to the state tournament. So,
what I was going to say, Doug, before I was so rudely interrupted by my co-host there, Taylor County hosted the
This is my wife, Trish. Tomorrow will be our 30th wedding anniversary. So,
happy anniversary, Trish.
Congratulations.
And we're going to talk about Fred here before long.
Got in there. That was good.
Yeah,
that's good. Absolutely.
So, so I don't know if you knew it or not, or kind of on Facebook because we're friends, but the Taylor County actually hosted the 5th region tournament this past year, and so our last 2 games, our semifinals and final, capacity crowds. I mean, we seat now. Of course, the old gym was about 1,800, 2,100, and we're at 3,500 now. So we had capacity crowds on that. So we were very fortunate to get to host that tournament. And so again, high school sports crowds, it's just electric when you get to those games.
Yeah, and I've been by the school a couple of times when I went back to visit mom and dad. I've never actually gotten an opportunity to go in the gym, but I've seen pictures of it and stuff. It looks incredible, you know. It's kind of like
on your first love there in football, we've just turfed the football field there too. So if you ever get a chance to come back, and we've turfed the baseball infield and infield of the girls softball team this year. So we're making a lot of improvements. So when you come back, we'd love to get your picture with it and all that kind of stuff.
But it's funny you said that. It'll be sooner than later. I'm actually going to come back probably in about 4 weeks and see mom and dad for a little bit. So, I'll definitely swing by. I saw that saw the turf field pretty sweet. But yeah, that old grass field brings back some good memories too.
Oh,
so.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Alec?
Talk about your time at U of L with you and Kevin Mings both going up there, and then talk about where you're coaching now and like what your team's looking like this coming season and everything.
Oh, great. U of L. So Kevin we were both at Sheldon State. Kevin got hurt. Would have been our sophomore year. He blew his knee out. Dothan, Alabama is one of those things, as a friend, you'll never forget, just right there in front of us. But my senior year, Kevin's junior year, we played together. To be able to share that experience with, someone that's been part of your life forever, and, actually Kevin pretty quasi introduced me to Trish, my wife Trish down in Alabama. So, to have that experience and, we roomed together, to be able to travel together. At that time, I'm pretty sure it's not around anymore, but we were in the Metro Conference. So we had South Carolina, Florida State. Those were the big dogs. So, to be able to take those trips and do that together was awesome. As far as, JC or junior college in Alabama is it's a really unique thing because we don't offer scholarship, so we have no scholarship monies. We have most community colleges don't have on-campus housing, and whatever you hear in Campbellsville about how expensive it is in California, it's every bit of that. So there's a lot of challenges that come with it. Most kids have to work. They go to school, and because of the housing and because of our geographic location, most kids drive in 35, 40 minutes a day just to practice. So it's really unique that way. And the thing that ends up happening is you end up getting a really good group of dedicated people that have kind of a common purpose. Our first year was something I've never experienced. We really didn't even get our whole team until after the first of the year. And so we had 2 weeks of practice. We lost our first 14 games. Never really done that before, but it's a new experience. But, I love one of my favorite coaches, obviously, my wife's from Alabama, and my in-laws retired from there. I love Nick Saban. He talks about the process. And as I'm starting to go through the coaching, I'm actually understanding more and more. And, you got to get buy-in, but you got to have a realistic timeline for that. And so long story short is we lost our first 14, but we won 11 out of our last 14. We ended up finishing second in the league. And this year, because of the way that the team came together, most of these kids were a little older, so they'd already had jobs they were going to. So we basically recruited a whole new team in. I started sometimes I started 8 freshmen last year. We played a really tough preseason. We were 4-0 in conference. We were kind of building up for that. I don't know how many of you coach, and I know Ben and Alec are maybe haven't cut their teeth yet, but there's a point where it kind of teeters back and forth, and all of a sudden you make that little bit of a move and you go, okay, I think we're on the right path. And we just had hit that. We're about 10 minutes from loading up, going on a 2-night road trip to play up in the mountains. And AD said, hey, I can't let you go. And, what turned into 2 weeks has been 5 or 6 months now. So, but yeah, Alec, it's a unique situation in the fact that, most kids pay their way. There are some programs out here there are some really nice programs for people, not only athletes, but for students that want to attend a junior college. You can do it relatively inexpensive. And for some of our students, we don't give scholarships, but they do. If they hit some criteria, they can get the first year of tuition free through the state and stuff like that. So I'm really so to answer your question, you got me talking about coaching now. I don't. Hopefully, we'll get done here pretty soon. But the great thing is we had a we lost a couple really good players. We've been able to fill some gaps with some freshmen that are coming in, and man, I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to be able to compete. Whether we're going to win the state or not, I don't know. I mean, no one's told us we could, so I guess until they prove us we can. That's kind of the way I look at it. It's the way I've looked at things my whole life. It's coming in. The great thing, and I'll finish on this, is you're talking about buy-in and the process, and these kids come in, they have you got 12 kids, they got 12 different coaches, and they all have different philosophies, and you only get them for 2 years, so you really got to condense how you're going to get them to fit into your program. Hats off to my team and the girls that have been through our program, and I'm really encouraged because I have a great core group back now, and I have a good group of freshmen coming in, and they can kind of help teach each other along the way. So, did I get it?
Yep.
All right.
All right, so before I ask my question, 2 things. One thing, if I looked lost whenever you guys were talking about your high school days, it's because I didn't know anyone you guys mentioned, didn't know what was going on. But I enjoyed hearing it, I'll say that. Another thing, I figured out the math.
He was there.
I will. I figured out the math question. 24 years ago was January of this year. That's what it feels like. I'm pretty sure that's right.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
That's about right.
That's probably Common Core, but that's okay. We can handle it.
So, of course, I'm at UK right now. We've done testing before classes. We do daily screening. Of course, masks everywhere if you're on campus, even outside. I think there was 120 some positive cases this past week. Today was the first day of classes. CSF, a Christian organization, they just had a big luau right across the street. I think 300 people were there, very tight space. If you were an athlete right now, would you feel safe playing, we'll say football, because that's coming up next, September 26th. Would you agree to play football right now?
Well, Paul and Scott know me, so my answer would be absolutely. I would. I do think COVID's a real thing. I do think there is obviously some safety guidelines that you can adhere to kind of shorten that thing. From an athlete, as far as safety playing, if you're in the NCAA, you're at UK. I mean, they got the best of the best and the best monitoring. I think the most difficult thing is, it's kind of like when you're coaching. For ever how long once those kids walk through the gate, you have them for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is, and you have. I don't want to use the word control, but basically you have control over them. What they do when they leave is a whole nother thing. So, the thing would be is I would not only preach, safety, but I would preach being a good teammate. So, when I played, or if I was playing now and I was doing everything I needed to do to make sure that we had a football season, and I saw a teammate out at that luau without a mask on, and then I that would probably bother me more than if I was worried about if I was going to get COVID playing. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that would be kind of me. But, for us, we're restricted to groups. So I have 2 groups. We practice odd days, so Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday. I have to split my coaches up, so the coaches can't they have to stay with that group the whole time. The kids bring their own bats. They, pretty much bring everything. We're required to wear a mask unless we're on the field. So we're trying to take those precautions. But that's a great question. Ben, I vacillated a lot in the last 5 months back and forth. I don't know if there is a right answer to that. I mean, I think a lot depends on, what your comfort level is. The one thing I would never want it to do, or wouldn't want anybody to do to me, is force me to do something. If I was uncomfortable that I thought I was going to be at high risk of getting it, then I would want it from a coaching standpoint. I'd want to, I'd want to honor what that kid and not punish them for that. I mean, it's a real thing, depending on if they have underlying health issues and stuff like that. I mean, you just go on and on, but, it's a great question. I think, I think in all common sense prevails. And, I think just be smart, try to limit yourself. I would tell my athletes the same thing. Try to limit your exposure. God forbid, if they split us up in groups, don't go over someone's house, right when you get off of practice and things like that. And just try to be smart and use common sense about it. Eventually this thing is going to run its course, and, we're all hoping sooner than later. But in the meantime, it's just uncomfortable. And, I tell the girls all the time, I said, it's either an excuse or an obstacle. And if it's an excuse, then we can't do anything about it. If it's an obstacle, we just have to figure out a way to work around it. And I think that's the way we're viewing it now. COVID's an obstacle for us. So how can we safely maneuver around the obstacle, continue to prepare my biggest thing, and I have an incredible coaching staff. For a small school, honestly, God, we have one of the best ones in Northern California. But our job is to prepare them and help them get on to the next level, which is a 4-year school. So every opportunity we get to do that, we're going to do that, but we're going to do it smart and from a safe standpoint. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's a great question and actually a very tough one to answer.
I didn't want to feel like I was leading on to shaming you for answering that yes, because I hope they do play. And my roommate here plays on the football team. He wants to play. Training camps tomorrow. I want him to play. So.
Yeah. No, I think athletes just want to compete. That's what we want to do. Go ahead.
Well, Paul, I don't really have any more questions. I want to make a couple of statements here, then Doug can say something about them if you'd like. But, we've heard a lot of great things that Doug's done with Taylor County High School, Campbellsville College, some school in Louisville that I don't really address very often. Those are all wonderful things. But let's be real, Doug. The greatest accomplishment is the back-to-back Mets championships in the 70s, 1 year undefeated. Paul, Alec, man, I was fortunate enough to be a Campbellsville kid with all the Taylor County kids. Me and Craig Hines, the whole team was Taylor County except for us. 2 years, we won it back-to-back. 1 year, we didn't lose a game, if I remember right. Doug, what'd you think about those days when we were young playing for – by the way, Doug's dad was one of the best guys I've been around coaching baseball to keep people interested and really knowledgeable. And same with Kevin Mings' dad. I got to play a lot for him. So those two guys really helped me out in baseball when I was a young kid. But what about Little League Baseball back in the old days, Doug? What do you think about that? I think that's better than all that other stuff.
Oh, man, I think, once a Met, always a Met, right? And,
absolutely.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough, my dad was involved in Little League way before I even got to the opportunity to play, and I think he coached for some 25 years or something like that. So he was able to impact a lot of people. But Scott, there was some good athletes on the Mets team. It's funny being on the backside and hearing Dad and Coach Bland, trying to figure out who they're going to. Recruiting on the brain, not recruit, but who they were going to draft, I guess. But one of the greatest memories, Scott, is I was looking through some. Last time I was at home, I was looking through some pics, and it came up your dad's old truck. We were all loaded up, heading down to Dairy Queen, and but I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's important to say this. I say it again because I've been removed for 24 years, but I would hope it's the same. Scott, one of the greatest things about growing up in Campbellsville for me was, from an athletic standpoint, is that if you went to Taylor County, you were a Cardinal. If you went to Campbellsville, you were an Eagle. But there was always mutual respect. And I don't know if we just came through at a time when everybody just got along. It was just an incredible group of athletes, and obviously we wanted to beat Campbellsville, and Campbellsville wanted to beat Taylor County. But in situations like Little League and All Stars, and we played some Legion ball and stuff like that. You really didn't go to Taylor County, or you didn't really go to Campbellsville. You just were from Campbellsville, and you loved to play sports. And But, my God, we had Mark Slazarski. We had Joyce Slazarski, who ended up playing professionally and played for the U.S. Olympic team. We had Coach Cox played. I was really I really enjoyed Jason put together the Mets reunion and to come back and, Kevin, I mean, you just go on. And, Scott, I really appreciated, you and your dad and I think your brother, no, it was your uncle, I believe. You guys let me tag along to some UK football games and, I played a lot of wiffle ball together, listened to a lot of Eagles together, and it was some great times. But I think you talk about the Mets. I think it's important of good coaches having kids at an early age, and I think one thing that Dad did well is not only did he coach and teach, but he also held kids accountable. And again, it didn't matter if you were Kerry Cox or whomever. If you screwed up, you're running like everybody else was. And I think that gets missed a little bit in rec ball now. You get a lot of people. Ben, this may talking about athletes. This may, if I was a rec ball coach now, I don't know if I'd be so much concerned about winning as I would be about teaching kids how to compete and how to get them better to move on. It's always about moving a kid on to the next level. If you're a little league coach, you want to get them prepared for junior high coach, high school, and it just keeps going on and on. And once that gets skewed, it could be a horrible experience. But Scott, we had Mr. Kearney coach the Twins, and probably one of our best games in Little League was when the Twins were undefeated, and I don't know if you remember, but Dad took us down. Camels stood about 10 feet away, threw as hard as he could, and just facing Greg, who was an incredible pitcher, not only just about every level, and not just about, but at every level, he was a great pitcher. It's probably one of Dad's greatest victories, to be able to beat Mr. Kearney and the Twins are undefeated. But just incredible. I appreciate you guys having me on. Just incredible memories. I don't know if I'd go back and change everything. Alec, your dad was he's a little crafty lefty. Played for the Cardinals, and it was like, man, we got to play. He's just throw that little bitty curveball, and that little ball run away from you. But just incredible times, man.
Hey, Paul, I got one more thing. I got one more quick thing.
All right.
For our Jeff's Food Mart trivia of the day, I get asked this a lot. We talk about athletes from some people that you all know, all them old guys, older than us now. Whenever we talk about the best all-around athletes in Taylor County history, my answer is Doug. He may not have been the best one-sport athlete. We've had a lot of really great athletes play one sport. But for me, I go back to about 1975 in my memory, and I would consider Doug as the best all-around athlete, as a point guard, basketball, track, and football. And I don't know, did you catch and play infield in baseball?
Yeah, I mainly caught in high school, but yeah.
To me, that would put him as the best all-around athlete that I can remember. And Doug, the most the player with the most winning in Taylor County history is Paul's son, Grant McQuarrie. He's a regional football champion, how many time basketball champion? 3?
2.
Is that right, Paul?
2.
2-time. And he won a baseball region. He played baseball for 5 years, basketball for 4, football for 4, and played quarterback, center field, you name it, he did it. And he's the winningest athlete in Taylor County history. So pretty good connection there amongst the guys that are really good athletes.
Well, congratulations to that, Paul. You talking to your son on this thing rather than me. But
his mom is a great athlete from what I remember. I don't know.
Well, hey, that's kind of humbling. I really appreciate that. I just fortunate enough to come through at the right time and just really had really great people that I was able to play with, from 7th grade all the way through high school, and just made the experience just incredible. I could probably spend the next 15 minutes just naming names. I wouldn't do that because I forget someone. My memory's kind of going a little bit, but I do appreciate that. I enjoyed each sport. I enjoyed competing with my teammates, and it was just a great time for me. People talk about they wouldn't go back and do their high school over. I wouldn't change anything in my life now, but I would definitely go back and do high school again. It was
Well, I can say this, that I can remember anyway, like I was talking to Mark Carney here the other day. Mark Carney, we're talking about some of the old baseball games, and of course, Grant's got all these stats from when Coach Gum coached, through his stat. But we were looking at some of those stats, and we realized that some of those stats, your name's not in there because we don't have your stats, because we lost your stats. Somehow they all got lost. So if you ever come across those stats, if you have some of those things, shoot me an email or Facebook me. I'd like to get those in the record book and kind of things, because that was quite a. I can remember taking down just real quick, and then we'll wrap this thing up. In 1981, I can remember playing Taylor County. Did you play quarterback then, Greg? I mean, Doug.
Well, you made me do math. That would have been my freshman year, I think.
Who was the quarterback?
Robbie Costa started my freshman year, and then I played a lot. My freshman year of football was the greatest year ever. We did walkthroughs on Monday. I played freshman on Tuesday. I played JV on Friday. We did walkthroughs on Thursday, and I played varsity on Friday night. Man, it was like a trifecta.
It was such a trifecta. I remember we came to Taylor County, and you all beat us 77-7. And my coach was so mad, he kicked the football over in the subdivision, a brand new football, because he said, "You guys aren't playing hard enough." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? These guys are like playing Kentucky over here." It was awesome.
All right. 81 would have been my freshman year.
Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. Doug, thanks so much for joining us here on the Hatcher Auto Sales Fab Four podcast. We wish you nothing but the best, and I got to ask one question that I think that everybody will want to know, that is your friend on Facebook. How's Fred?
I think he made a run. He made a quick move the other day, and I think he tweaked like an MCL or something. So he's a little gimpy, but Fred's hanging in there. And that started out as a 2-week project that turned into almost like a full-time job. And so we kind of had to retire Fred after about 70 days. But I'll let him know that you talked about him.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but
Fred provided many days of entertainment. We look forward to seeing what Fred said and what the message was from Fred. So pretty cool.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
All right.
Hey,
Paul,
Paul.
wrap it up.
Paul,
All right,
real quick.
Ben,
Real quick.
ahead.
I noticed my name wasn't in the record book. Did you lose my stats too?
No, you'll have to talk to Alec and Burr about
Not
those
me.
things.
Not me.
All right, that's all the time we have for you on the Hatcher Auto Fab Four podcast. Again, if you need a rebuilt car, go and see Daniel and Danny out there they do a fine job. 5911 New Lebanon Road, 270-469-6357. That's all the time we have today on the Fab Four podcast. Peace out.